Vanessa has always been a quiet girl. She never made any friends like the other children her age, and preferred the company of her dolls. When she reached her teens, little did anything change. Vanessa usually kept to her room, all alone, reading or working on one of her projects. Vanessa's introversion had her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Cameron, worried for her, especially since they bought their new home in Crystal Cove, California. The house was everything they had dreamed of. It was spacious, had a large backyard, a beautiful oak tree, and just a walk behind the house led to an open cliffside that viewed the Pacific. But Vanessa had been born and raised in Seattle her whole life. Mr. and Mrs. Cameron feared she would have a hard time transitioning to the new environment. However, surprising as it was, the parents were relieved when Vanessa loved the new home. But considering how isolated the neighborhood was, and being homeschooled, Vanessa became even more withdrawn and lonely. The tree in the backyard had a treehouse built by the previous owner, and Vanessa spent much of her time there. Mr. and Mrs. Cameron didn't really heed to the matter, until Vanessa started spending so much time there that she was rarely in the house anymore. "Jason, it's raining out. What does she do all day in there?" "What's the problem? You know she's always been a little different." "No, recently she's been skipping out on lunch. Yesterday she came back in at 9. "Don't worry, it's just a phase. Let her be." To get Vanessa to open up a little, Mrs. Cameron invited over some newly made friends. "Vanessa dear, come here. Meet Mrs. Rogers. She's our neighbor." "Mom, I was going out." "A minute won't hold you up now." "Mom, you know I don't like these things." Mrs. Cameron didn't like how impolite her daughter had been to the guests. Vanessa didn't return to the house until everyone had left. That night, out of curiosity, Mrs. Cameron went to the treehouse herself. Did she paint in there? Did she read? No, the treehouse was absolutely empty. Earlier today, she had seen Vanessa come out with her journal. Perhaps she wrote here. But even then, for how long? Much of the time she was probably just sitting here. Mrs. Cameron thought she'd take a different approach. If Vanessa didn't like being around people, alright, she didn't have to. "Mom's going to the mall. Come on, get ready, let's go." "I don't want to go." "Why not? Don't you think you should spend a little more time out?" "I'm fine at home, Mom. What's your problem? Why are you always on my back? Just leave me alone. You don't have to worry about me." Things started to go a bit over the line when Vanessa started misbehaving, just so she could stay out in the treehouse. No matter what time of the day it was, in sunshine or rain, Mrs. Cameron always knew where Vanessa was. "Listen, Vanessa, I'm going to be frank with you. I don't want you to spend so much time in that treehouse. It's been too much. If it's privacy you want, you can sit out on the patio or stay in your room. Why don't you take a walk to the beach shore?" Vanessa silently sat there without even looking at her. "Did you hear me?" "Whatever." This time the talk seemed to have worked, though Vanessa still spent time in the backyard sitting under the shade of the oak tree. At least, it was better than being caged up in that wooden box. It was one of these days. Mrs. Cameron woke up, prepared breakfast, and went round about to wake everyone up. But when she stepped into Vanessa's room, she found it empty. "Vanessa?" She wasn't in the bathroom. Did she get up and go to the treehouse this early? Absolutely bewildered by her daughter's strange obsession, Mrs. Cameron rushed out and climbed up the ladder. But just as she was to call Vanessa, she stopped, seeing her curled up inside, sleeping. She must have sneaked out last night and dozed off here. Mrs. Cameron quietly climbed back down. She didn't confront Vanessa about it. But when she noticed Vanessa repeatedly spending night after night in the treehouse, it became a matter of concern. Do you know what your daughter's been doing? What? She's been sneaking out and sleeping in that treehouse, even after I warned her not to go. Don't blame her, Valerie. I told you to let her be. It was probably just a phase, but you were so strict on her that now she's going behind your back. Jason, you have to stop making excuses for your little princess and have a serious talk with her. This isn't safe, nor is it normal. Mr. Cameron almost always took his daughter's side. But it was one morning when he noticed the dark circles under Vanessa's eyes. He realized perhaps Valerie was right. His daughter's behavior wasn't normal. Vanessa, where were you last night? What do you mean? I was in my room. Are you sure? Am I sure? I was sleeping in my room. Mr. Cameron had no doubt Vanessa was lying to him. Sweetheart, this has gone on long enough, and I'm only saying this for your own good. You're not allowed to go to the treehouse again. But Dad, I didn't do anything. You can't do this. Please, let me go. I don't want to hear anything about this. It's final, Vanessa. Since then, Mr. Cameron kept an eye on his daughter, and sure enough, she didn't disobey him. However, over the next few days, the parents noticed a strange change in Vanessa. Rather than staying in her room as they expected she would, Vanessa spent most of her time near the window that faced the treehouse. She held the glass and longed to go out. She looked miserable. Look at her. Just let her go out, Valerie. It's not like she's sneaking out with her friends doing all those crazy things. She's just in the treehouse. Oh, Jason, your daughter knows exactly how to get what she wants out of you. Don't pay attention to her. She'll get over it and move on to something else. But the days turned to weeks, and Vanessa seemed to go into depression. And late on a rainy night, the parents woke up to a noise outside. What was that? You think someone broke in? You stay here. I'll see what it is. Taking his pocket knife, Mr. Cameron sneaked out of his room to see what the noise was about. And just barely caught a glimpse of Vanessa walking down the hall. Vanessa? What are you doing up at this hour? But Vanessa didn't respond. Vanessa? Vanessa, where are you going? When Vanessa didn't respond to him, Mr. Cameron realized she was sleepwalking. Mr. Cameron felt curious when he saw Vanessa unlock the back door and walk out. He started to follow her. She was probably going to the treehouse again. But when Vanessa passed the treehouse and walked down onto the path that led to the cliffside, Mr. Cameron became a little concerned to where exactly she was going and what she was doing. Had the treehouse been a cover-up to something else all this time? Mr. Cameron followed his daughter all the way to the cliffside. There was no one here. There was nothing here. It was 2 a.m. at night. What was she doing? Vanessa continued to walk further and further down the cliffside. Mr. Cameron was distraught, realizing Vanessa intended to jump. And there was nothing but the ragged rocks and the cold ocean waves beneath. Vanessa! Vanessa, wake up! Mr. Cameron yelled as he ran to save his daughter. Just seconds away from falling, he grabbed hold of Vanessa's hand. She was still drowsy in her sleep, in no state to speak. Mr. Cameron's heart raced just looking at her. What would have happened if he hadn't woken up, if he hadn't seen her leave? Mrs. Cameron was waiting on the patio when she noticed her husband return with Vanessa unconscious in his arms. What happened? Is she okay? She needs rest. Stay with her tonight. We can't leave her alone. Mr. Cameron returned to his room that night, listening to the thunder rumble outside. He tossed side to side, wondering why Vanessa would want to end her life. What was bothering her? Why was she so depressed? This all started ever since he had stopped her from going to the treehouse. Her strange behavior, the abnormalities. Unable to sleep in anxiety, Mr. Cameron went out to the backyard in the pouring rain and took out his axe from the shed. If this treehouse was the reason behind everything, he would take it down. Hearing the noise, Mrs. Cameron rushed out, shocked to see her husband cutting down the tree. "Jason, what are you doing?" "This has to go." Mr. Cameron gave another heavy blow onto the thick oak tree, when all of a sudden his axe broke in and got stuck inside a hollow space in the tree. What is this? He pulled out the axe and broke the bark off to see inside. This is unbelievable. How can this be? What is it, Jason? Mr. Cameron held back his wife. "No, don't. We have to call the police." Early that dawn, the police arrived, and after hearing out Mr. Cameron, began to investigate the oak tree. The parents watched as the crew took out the bones, skeletal remains of an individual. Vanessa stood silently watching as tears rolled down her cheek. After a week-long investigation, the police informed the Cameron family that they had discovered the remains of a young man named Ethan Graham, who had gone missing from this town many years ago. All evidence indicated someone had taken the young man's life and hid his remains in the hollow trunk of the tree. Over the years, the tree had regrown and repaired the hollowed-out bark. And after many years, the police had gotten some insight on the case that had yet to be solved. After the police finished their investigation, Mr. and Mrs. Cameron thought it best that the tree was cut down once and for all. Now with the backyard empty, the parents got some relief from all that had happened. But Vanessa? It seemed she too was recovering from her depression and unusual behavior. But every now and then, she still goes out to where the tree had been and writes in her journal. The first time Vanessa climbed up to the treehouse, it had started to rain heavily. She planned to return, but stopped looking out at the ocean waves from the small window. It was beautiful. "Hey." Startled, Vanessa turned, hearing a voice. She was frightened to see a boy behind her. Who are you? Where did you come from?" "Don't be scared. I mean no harm. My name is Ethan." The boy held out his hand, but when Vanessa went to shake it, her hands passed through his. She couldn't touch him, she couldn't feel him. "What are you?" Vanessa's new friend amazed her, and with every meeting, she looked forward to seeing him again. "Are you new here?" "Yes, I moved here with my family a few weeks ago. What about you?" "Well, you can say this place is like home for me." Vanessa began spending hours in the treehouse every day. Talking to Ethan, she loved being with him. "Vanessa, you're here at this hour?" "I was missing you, so I sneaked out. Everyone's sleeping. When I talk to you, I feel like all my pain suddenly goes away." "Me too. I think I've fallen in love with you." "I don't want to hear anything about this. It's final, Vanessa." Vanessa, if you love me, you would listen to me. Nothing will be able to separate us, Vanessa. Meet me at the cliff. We'll be together forever. Come, Vanessa, we can finally be together. The pain will be over in just a matter of minutes. Leap into the water, Vanessa. Leap into the water and come to me. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends and family.